All right, hello and welcome to Comic Island. My name is Arden, and I am joined by Comic Uno. She is a YouTuber who's been on our channel at least once or twice before, but I've also reviewed your series, like Father, Like Daughter. I believe all the issues. I've done five.
Actually, I have to. Yeah, you've done five. Yeah, so we're actually releasing six now. So I think you've reviewed all of them, and
Okay,
then yeah, Kickstarter for issue six literally right now. So I got to give you more of the issues.
as I say, we'll talk about that then later. And she's also a writer for Newsrama, DC Universe. You still do stuff for IGN or?
So IGN actually closed their comic book reviews, which
Oh,
is
okay.
crazy. But I was the last of their comic reviews, which is also pretty awesome. That I was one of the last ones to do weekly reviews with them.
Well, my apologies. You wrote for IGN and stuff. Anyways, it's Kapakudo, so thanks for joining us. And today we're going to be uh, ranking all of the Batman movies. So, for those of you that saw our older video doing that for the MCU movies, the idea is Kat and I have both prepared our own personal rankings of each movie that Batman's appeared in a movie that's been in theaters in any capacity. So that can range as a small little cameo role, such as in Shazam, to a movie about him, like any number of Batman films. We're going to go through our rankings, each saying, like, from bottom to top, which one is. Like, I'll say my lowest ranked, and then Kat will say her lowest ranked, and then we'll keep going up. But we don't actually talk about the movies or put them on our final list at all, which I do have displayed on stream. Yeah, you actually can't see that, but that's fine. It's just it's a Word document. That'll
I
just,
wish I could see it, but it's fine. No, it's
uh,
okay.
yeah. If you want, the easiest way to do it actually is if you just, you can pull it up on our stream on your phone, just have that
Yeah, I
do.
see the stream. I have it on. Yeah, I have it on mute,
Oh,
so I
perfect. So
can
then
see
you
it
can
now. Yeah.
see the visual of it then. And so we don't actually talk about it until it's ranked. So when we both mention it, then it goes up on there and then we talk about it. So we're kind of combining our list on the fly based on where we each rank it, and each of us kind of will pull it in a certain direction. So if I rank something really high, then you might mention it early on, but we don't actually talk about it until I bring it up farther up on the list. Okay, we do have a bunch of people talking, so I will quickly defer to that. Hello, Lightning Bolt, Tevya Smoka, Jason Tupac. Um, Lightning Bolt asks if the Joker movie counts. Yes, it does, because it featured his little wee Bruce Wayne and his origins. So I was very lax. Basically, if Wikipedia said it goes on here, it goes on here. Tevya is asking how your day's going, Kat. Oh, and you said not
Going
bad.
well.
Oh, cool. So you can interact as we go along too through chat. That will be helpful because then we can kind of have a couple of layers going on. Now we did have a third potentially joining us. Okay, I think he might pop in at some point soon. Um, well, I guess until then we can answer the other one question that is a little unrelated, but I'll buy Ben a little bit of time if he manages to join us. Um, what was it? Who is smarter, Batman or Doctor Doom in terms of strategy? I would say Doctor Doom.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, Doctor Doom owns his own country. Not owns, but he's ahead of his own
Yeah, it
country.
feels
So
like he's got more going on with that. He figured out the whole Secret Wars, uh, and that
that's
sort of
true.
thing.
Yeah, Doctor Doom's got a lot on his plate.
Man, you guys are nailing some of the questions here. Tevya asked if Mask of the Phantasm counts. Yes, it does. You guys have kind of identified just about every other little caveat of this. So that'll include the DCU movies, as I kind of implied already. It'll include all those Lego movies, because they were wide release. And obviously, Burton, 1966. Oh, I will say, I didn't count the 1950s serials. They technically were
Yeah,
released in theaters, but they felt like a very different beast. And I did not want to put us through that and trying to figure out a way to incorporate them here. But 1966 I counted for sure because that's just a straight up movie, and uh, I got
important.
yeah, talk about that a little bit. Um, okay, and then they're asking about how DC Comics cutting away from Diamond and how we feel about that. I
That's
feel
a
like
big one.
that's. I was gonna say like that, especially like the two of us could probably talk about that for a great deal of time. Um,
Yeah.
I, maybe save that for another day, especially because that just happened, and that's a complicated situation.
It is a very complicated question and answer, and I think the comic book industry still needs to figure out what that means, right?
Yeah, like we really won't know the full effects of that for a long time. It could be a 90s debacle. I don't have a lot of love for Diamond either, though, so we'll have to see. I do have somewhere
Yeah.
around here books I got from DC during COVID, not from Diamond, and they were kind of printed neat. It felt like a slightly different paper and stuff.
Oh, did it?
Yeah,
I
I'm
haven't
not
gotten my printed books from my because my stores because I live in New York, so
okay.
things are still closed until
Right.
this week actually. So I'll finally get my print comics this week. They're
Oh,
doing
nice.
curbside pickup, so I'm gonna feel how those DC books feel like soon.
I don't know if it was like one of them was one of those like recreation facsimile comics.
Okay.
But I did get like a Wonder Woman comic, and it kind of was like, oh, this seems a little different, the way it was printed and just certain aspects. But mine also came really late too. Like they didn't come the week that they were coming out. It took a while for my store to get them too. So there's a lot of balls in the air about that. Oh, and then there's the other question that we actually talked about a little earlier. Tevi asked about Batman killing Joke. We didn't count that one. We seem to be on the same page about not wanting to talk about it very much.
Yeah,
And it wasn't wide released. It was very limited in its release.
I think it
Unlike,
was one day. I think it was like
yeah,
limited, and it was like one theater chain that had it. I think it was
I
like
I did look it up
Regal or
when
whatever.
compiling this list, and it felt different enough from Mask of the Phantasm to not include it. Um, So, yeah. And then for those of you who can see the stream, that brings it to about 18 movies. Well, exactly 18 movies. Um, but should give you a rough idea of the full scale of it, because that's about every boundary I can think of any Batman movie. There might have been unofficial appearances and cameos, like in Mallrats or something like that. I definitely didn't count any of that. That would open it up way too much.
Oof, yeah.
And yeah, I think we've given bad enough time, so that's okay. It'll just be the two of us. So we'll go ahead and get started then. I'll try and tap into chat every once in a while, guys. It does seem pretty busy, so we do want to focus on this. I don't want to keep you here forever, Kat. And last time, Ben and I talked about these movies for a while. So yeah. So one thing I do recommend is that we sort of check it off as we go along, so then we know when a movie gets two check marks, we can do that. Um,
Cool.
for various reasons, the way these lists tend to work, although I think it'll work that way. I'm gonna go first. That actually gives you, it's like you're the guest, so I'm gonna give you a little bit more power down the road, the way these things tend to work out. Um, but my number 18, and therefore least liked Batman movie, is Batman and Robin.
Mine too.
Okay, so it's always fun because, and that came up with when Ben and I did the MCU movies. There's going to be those moments where we tie, and it's always funny when those sort of things happen. So our number 18 choice is Batman and Robin, and that's going to be the first one we talk about. Although that being said, this is one of those ones I was like, a lot's been said about this movie that I don't disagree with. Like the basics of what people say about it, I'm pretty much on board with. This is a bit
It's
of a
trash.
mess. Yeah, exactly. It's trash. There's so much wrong with it at once. Bane, Mr. Freeze, and Poison Ivy are all simultaneously wasted, along with Batgirl and Robin
Oof, I
and
have
Batman.
so many feelings about Batgirl being Alfred's niece. It's not even funny.
Yeah, and that wasn't used in any productive way. In theory, I guess it could have been. I'm thinking like Julia Pennyworth kind of thing or something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. That could have worked. Instead, it's all just like, oh, like I think he he created they like there's this weird assumption that she's gonna break the rules and find out about it, so he built her a suit and like a little tutorial video and all this stuff about it.
Be
Arnold
Batgirl.
Arnold Schwarzenegger was not a good choice for Mr. Freeze, and now that I'm thinking about it, probably could have made a cooler Bane. Um,
And
'Cause
Uma Thurman was Poison Ivy, right?
yeah, I think that could have worked in a better movie, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, she's a good actress. If you see Kill Bill and all, obviously like Pulp Fiction and all that.
For
But yeah,
sure.
it's just like a a mishmash of like, you have Uma Thurman, you have Alicia Silverstone, and then you got George Clooney. It's like
Mhm.
every actor of the 90s it came out, right? Early
Yeah.
90s. I don't think it's late 80s. Yeah, early 90s, like whoever was popular, they're just like, we're gonna stuff you into this one movie. I
No,
actually think, in my opinion, I would say probably is the worst movie comic book movie. That's where I go. Some people think it's Catwoman the movie, but at least
yeah,
the effects are better than this one. Like if I have to like really rank them, like at least the effects look okay in that movie.
that's
That's why I
true.
think it's the worst comic book movie is
This
Batman
movie
and
is
Robin.
ugly, oversaturated with its colors. We'll have another example of that soon enough, I'm sure. But and it's got like a noisy aggression to it. Catwoman kind of has that too, where it's like annoying and antagonistic to watch. Um, but there's like a special level of fun, I guess we'll say, with all the nonsense of this movie. Like they go skating, which I think I blocked out of my brain until just now. I
I
I
forgot
did
about that.
I
Yeah.
did remember the credit card. I'll never forget that. There's a like snowboarding scene. Like they kind of try
It's
and
everything in one movie.
make Robin cool, but it doesn't work at all. George Clooney was a good Bruce Wayne. I thought that was a neat
Yeah.
idea. I don't know if it was paid off too well here, but it's like, oh yeah, I can really see that. And then I think in a better movie, he could have worked somewhat well.
Yeah,
Uh,
the script wasn't good, so it was hard, you know? It was just like
yeah,
he could have been okay, but he could maybe even been an okay Batman if the costume looked better and the movie was better. We don't know, but
yeah.
it's a lot of people they kind of some people rank this a little higher because of nostalgia. I watched this in high school though, so I was like a
Oh,
little
interesting.
older. I wasn't like a kid when I watched it. I think like kids can have fun with it, but as like a semi-adult, I didn't like it at all.
Do you know what movie year this movie came out in? I'm looking on the poster I have
Let
up
me
here. I
see.
don't see. Um, I was
1997.
so I was 8. Oh,
Three.
Oh wow. Okay. Which is interesting, but like so, because you mentioned the kid thing. This is one of those movies that are like, oh, this is a bad movie. Like when you're a kid and you don't have that concept. This and Star Wars 2, which was considerably later than this, were the first like firm memories I have of watching a movie and thinking like, oh, this wasn't very good. And I think Batman and Robin was kind of early for that even, but it stood out. Kid me liked Batman Forever, which I saw it around the same time because I don't think I saw Batman Forever when I was like 6. Um, and I remember liking Batman Forever, and we will save it for when we talk about that one a bit. But this one I remember recognizing as a kid not liking it and stuff. So I think even like 8's getting a little bit older and you're starting to recognize quality. I'm sure at 5 or 6 it would be fine, but like even then the threshold of that I think is real low, and it's not that much for kids, um, or at least like it's that patronizing level for children where they
Yeah.
tend to like it's not going to appeal to kids. Like we'll get to better examples of movies directed to kids
Yeah.
with Batman that I think do a better job of it. And yeah, I do feel Joe Schumacher, like the director of this movie and another, tends to get a bit of a bum rap. I feel a lot of this is studio driven. There's this, like he talks a lot about how a lot of the designs of these characters and the costumes and stuff are to fit well with toy releases. And I remember I
Oh God.
probably the next room over, I have like a Bane action figure from this movie, and there were more around. I don't think I have any others, but like they had a whole line of them that I remember being out, and it was like heavily pushed as a big thing and stuff. The vehicles, I had some of those, and I must have had a Batman to go with it, of like the bat plane that was used in this movie and stuff. So I don't know how much of it is him. And he did also, we'll get more into it with Batman Forever, but he did pioneer a lot of weird aspects of like these movies in terms of setting things up and stuff. If you want to hear more of that, Kevin Smith did commentary on all these movies, and he gets into like, oh, like he does defend this movie and Batman Forever a little bit.
Does he? Oh man. I can
It's
understand that though. I could maybe there's some movies again, like you could kind of see it as trash, but there's maybe some golden nuggets other people will say.
yeah. Tevia was saying he finds Batman and Robin a bit of a guilty pleasure. I can see that. I could see it with this movie. Like I'd have a hard time buying that with Catwoman, for example, because
Yeah, I agree.
um, yeah, like it just isn't quite as strong as the film. But you know, everyone's got their threshold. I know people that would like and defend this movie, but I've never felt that way about it. Um,
Me either.
yeah. All right. So now we kind of bounce back and forth. So now for round 17, you go first, and then I go, and then I'll go for 16, and then so forth. So we kind of loop back and round.
So my 17 is Batman versus Superman.
Okay. That is not my 17. My 17 is actually Batman Forever. So we leave those for now. And then we go to number 16, which for me is Justice League.
Mine is also Justice League.
Oh, hey, there we go. So Justice League actually becomes our 17th ranked. But right, we both ranked at 16, and seem to have similar feelings about that.
Yeah, Justice League, man. It's a mess of a movie. It's interesting because of the Snyder Cut coming out, right? Like how
Yes.
not to go into like how do you feel about the Snyder Cut, but like for me, like I don't really like anything about this movie that I don't see how a 4-hour movie is gonna make me feel like it's gonna be better.
Yeah. Well, of the Snyder cut, or not the well the sorry the theatrical cut that drives me nuts is it feels like two different movies, that's going in two different directions. I do feel the Zack Snyder parts of Justice League are the parts I like the least, so I'm not super hopeful of Justice League Snyder cut, but I do think it'll be a bit more polished maybe, and they're more focused. Um,
Long too.
yeah, Justice League is a bit of a mess. I mentioned color saturation with Batman and Robin. The
Oof,
worst example of it is actually Justice League. It
I agree.
looks weird. The costumes look awful. That final act, the cityscape. I don't even know what was that was all about.
Going on, right?
Yeah,
And
like
then even like the story of them like trying to find the cube, it's like it's the MacGuffin of the movie, and it's just so boring. And
yeah,
then you're leading up to that for your final act is like, and
yeah. I like there's that cool scene where they show the mother box being thought over, and there's a little Green Lantern cameo they stuck in. Uh, there's little aspects like that throughout the movie of scenes and cameos. Ben, you can hop in. That's not too bad. Feel free to. I see you're in chat. Yeah, you should have the link. I don't think it's too late if that's all right with you.
yeah, we've only done 2 movies so
Yeah,
far,
and you can
so
easily catch up and just go for your first three, and then we'll adjust accordingly. I don't think anyone's gonna object to our bottom two yet.
I'd hope not.
Um, okay, well we'll give them a second, and because of that, and the humor in it's weird. I really don't know where Zack Snyder ends and Whedon begins, because halfway through Zack Snyder making Justice League, Batman v Superman came out, and there was issues with its release and stuff. So they kind of like reoriented things and made it more like the Avengers movie halfway through. So I don't think all of the stuff that gets attributed to this what's his face Whedon is necessarily all him. I think some of it is
Snyder.
yeah, Snyder.
It's hard because it's not like there's like a footnote in the bottom of the movie saying this is
No.
Whedon. You know, it's hard to tell, and but also you could definitely tell there's 2 different directors, and it's just hard because like when you're growing up, like there was always these rumors, especially like when Smallville happened
Mm-hmm.
and those shows are out, where it's just like, oh, we're gonna get the Justice League movie, we're gonna get a Justice League movie. So like all your life, you're kind of waiting for a Justice League movie, and then you get this, and you're like, oh, this is the Justice League movie. And for me, the only thing at that time I liked about the DC universe was Wonder Woman, and I really like Wonder Woman a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But then I didn't really like Man of Steel. I didn't really like the Batman vs Superman. So what was there to be excited for?
I
Hey guys,
I agree. Hi Ben. Sorry.
Hey,
Yes. Um,
I just wanted to wait for a lull. I was just waiting.
no, it was all good. I was yeah, I was gonna simulate. So thank you for joining us, Ben. Uh, yeah, don't worry.
Sorry about being late. I fell asleep.
It's all
That's
good.
the only excuse I got.
Yeah, it happens to the best of us, especially in a world where like we can't go out and do normal things at normal times.
taking naps are nice.
So
Yeah.
I will introduce. Okay, so Ben, you've been on the channel before. You're just a friend of mine. Not to downplay that. I just mean Kat is a writer and stuff, and we just know each other personally. But welcome. Thank you for joining us. This is Kat. She has written comics and works for a couple of websites like Newsrama and DC Universe. And
So I am by far and away the least qualified person to be in this Google Hangout right now.
Well, I'm excited to hear your opinion. I hope your bottom two is our bottom two. We'll have to see.
So
It is. I did double check. Like I came into the stream to see if Arden still wanted me in the call, and I'm pretty sure we still have the bottom two.
Okay, good.
Well, and we were saying like we both agreed there really wasn't going to be much harm because I don't think you would disagree with what we've got so far. Because right now we have Batman and Robin at number 18, Justice League at number 17.
Yes.
I guess we'll start with, is there anything you want to say about either of those two movies? Oh, I didn't put up my little poster either.
I love Batman and Robin more than people give the respect for. I agree. It is definitely the worst movie, but it's so if you look at it for what it is, which is ultimately a toy commercial that's over 2 hours long, it is one of the most nonsensical toy commercials you have ever seen in your life. And watching it from that perspective, because when you sent me this list, I realized that I had to rewatch so many of these movies that I've been looking at Batman since you messaged me about 4 days ago.
Wow. I'm glad you went along and did all that. I did not rewatch all these movies.
Yeah, I appreciate you doing that too, because I'm more like Kat and remembered a good enough amount of these that it wasn't as much work. But so thank you, Ben. I'm definitely glad you joined us, Ben.
There's only one movie that I did not watch and I refused to watch.
Oh, I'm ready.
And but we'll talk to that when we get there. Surprisingly, it's not at the bottom of my list.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
So you refuse to watch it again, which I can understand. There's some on here I would feel that way about.
I still have not seen it the first time.
Oh, interesting.
It's not last, man. So it's just.
And it is not last.
Interesting.
Okay.
I'm excited to hear which one it is.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. That is interesting. Okay, so that's good. Now, that being said, I would like to kind of reorient you with us. So can you give us your 18, 17, and 16?
Okay, so my 18 is Batman and Robin.
Okay, so that is, we are all in agreement there. It did sound like that.
Yep. My 17 is Justice League.
Okay, so there's all 3 check marks for that one too, which is great.
Yep. And you're ready for my 16?
Yes, I believe so.
16 is Batman v Superman.
Okay, so
and that was my.
Yeah, so I've said Batman Forever. So if you want to check off one there. 3 check marks for Justice League and Batman and Robin. And then that's 2 for Batman v Superman.
Okay.
That was Kat's number 17. Interesting. Okay. Now a couple of upgrades about this. The ordering that we had done was I was going first, Kat is going second. I'm going to stick you right in the middle. So you kind of have a better idea of how this all works out. I'm giving Kat the last place position, or last place.
Smart.
Yeah, exactly. As the new guest, it gives you the most power that way, Kat. And Ben, you're kind of in the middle, and you bounce between us, which is an interesting position to be in. We haven't had that before, but that should be pretty...
Yeah, we'll see how this works.
Cool. Okay, so we're all caught up then. Thanks for joining us, Ben. I think it'll be fun to have 3 people. Not that there was anything wrong with 2 of us. We were having... good time too. Kat, did you say your number 16 yet?
Yeah, I think it was Justice League.
Okay, so we've all done that then. So then, Kat, you can go with your number 15.
Mine is Batman Forever.
Batman Forever. Okay, so that's 2 check marks for that one. And then, Ben, you're up next with yours.
With my 15?
Yep, that's right.
So my 15 is actually Batman Returns.
Batman Returns. Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha. And then it goes to my 15, which is also different. The Lego Movie 2, the second part. And then I go again with number 14, which is Suicide Squad. So, after two firm last places, we've gotten quite a little bit of a spread here. Although I do note I'm still on one side of my ranking with everything. And then Ben, you go with your number 14. Is
My
everyone?
number 14.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say,
Yeah.
do you guys follow all that? Okay.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Just making sure.
My number 14 is the Lego Movie 2, the second part.
Ah. Okay. Interesting. And then that brings you to you, Kat.
Mine's Suicide Squad.
Suicide Squad. Okay. So 2 check marks for Suicide Squad, 2 for Lego Movie, 2 for Batman v Superman. All right, Kat. We go to your number 13 then.
Mine is Lego Movie 2.
Okay, so that is our next one. Interesting.
Right? This is definitely interesting ranking so far.
I thought that one was going to be a little controversial on my part, putting it
Nope.
a little bit lower, but
No.
I felt.
I will say,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I saw it with 2 friends, and I remember one of my friends fell asleep 15 minutes in, and then he went
Oh,
to go
wow.
see it again, and then he's like, he felt bad, he fell asleep.
I felt nothing watching this movie. We'll get into how I feel about the other Lego movies, I guess, because we have 3 on here. And, we're getting a little bit of Tevye saying Lego Movie 2 was awesome. I didn't hate it. I think the territory of movies I kind of liked, to a degree at least. But I found there wasn't much to Lego Movie 2. Whatever charm I eked out of the first one, I didn't really get out of the second one very much. And
Yeah,
there was
it wasn't
parts...
the live action aspects there. It wasn't. Maybe they did too much with the live action. I don't even remember. Honestly, it was
a
forgettable.
ton of live action in this one.
Yeah.
This is one that I watched
That was the
today
ton,
for
you're
the
right.
first time.
Oh,
Watched
So
today?
I watched it today for the first time, and so
There's a lot of stuff with the mom. Yeah.
I
oh
work
right. They're
in and
building that
around
thing.
toys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I work in and around toys. So
Oh, yeah.
the Lego for this movie, I think, did a better job of making me excited to want to watch the movie than actually watching the movie made me want to rewatch it. So I think
That's
that's
interesting.
where my gripe came from it. I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed the dynamics between the siblings when you finally figure out what's actually going on and why what's happening in the story keeps happening. It makes a lot of sense when you put your mind into those characters, into the people who are telling the story for us.
Yeah.
And it was an okay movie. It was very, but not the self-aware that I like in movies that we'll see further up on the list.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the Lego Movie one had, for me, a lot of magic because of the twist, and it's just so different from any movie we had seen in that time. But this is just there didn't need to be a sequel. I think that was my biggest gripe, is it was just such a obvious cash grab, and it just wasn't as good as the first one for me.
Yeah. It did
Yeah.
have a live action bit with Maya Rudolph as the mom. And like Ben was saying, it dominates more of the screen time. But the big thing, too, is there's no surprise. Like all the meta bits, the live action bits, the like ocean of cameos that were kind of part of a surprise of the first movie, it isn't here. And so because they just do the same thing, yeah, I don't think there's much to it. Yeah. And that's all I personally have to say on that movie. Okay, I think we're all pretty good on that one. Okay. So, all right, that was interesting. I think we were on round 13 then.
I believe so.
And then yeah, Kat, you said that one. So Ben, I believe
That
you're
was mine.
next.
Okay, so my number 13 is Suicide Squad.
Okay.
So that's our third check mark there.
That's right. So Suicide Squad is next. Interesting. I don't hate this. I will say, and I thought about this too, and it might come up again. I'm judging this based on the director's cut. So I did raise it ever so slightly, I think, because of that, because it has a little more.
I haven't seen the director's cut. I've only seen the theater version.
It's not a huge difference like Batman v Superman. It adds a few more scenes. I think it contextualizes Harley's character a little bit more. That's about it. You're really not missing a huge chunk of it, or like establishing shots like in Batman v Superman. It's just a couple of deleted scenes kind of thing. Like more like a typical director's cut, I would say. If in the world of director's cuts, like just it reworked a couple of things. It's fundamentally the same movie otherwise. It's all right. I don't like Jared Leto in this movie.
That's the whole. I think there's like a stripper scene with him, and it was just not very good. Again, have not seen the movie since it was released, but I will say I like Suicide Squad more than Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. So I remember going out of it saying it wasn't as bad as those things, but at the same time, this is a pretty bad movie. And I think there's so much wasted potential. It's like Margot Robbie. Love my Margot, and she's wasted here, and same for Will Smith. And there's like so much potential for this movie, and I think that's what's so disappointing with it. It's just like, it could have been okay, but they decided for it not to be, and then they added Jared Leto into it and make it not Harley's story at all.
Yeah, and even like Cara Delevingne, I can't say her name right, but the woman who plays
Delevingne,
the woman who plays the Enchantress, like she's pretty cool. She was other stuff, and it's interesting, and kind of felt wasted here. Amanda Waller felt really wasted.
Viola Davis, come on,
like she's great. I watched How to Get Away with Murder, and she's really good. She's in a bunch of other stuff, but I think she was a good choice for Amanda Waller, and it kind of just wasn't used.
I think that's kind of the echo that, or the sentiment that's going to kind of be echoed throughout that movie. There's a lot of really, really good stuff in the movie. Great actors, great scenes, but it just felt wasted, as you guys keep saying. There's so many amazing opportunities that it feels as if you fell flat coming out. You go into the movie expecting a lot worse, just based off of the movies that came out chronologically before, and so we come in just going, okay, we'll see what DC can put together here, and there were so many opportunities for great things to happen, and I just felt that they didn't take advantage of them when they should have.
Yeah.
I feel like we're kind of just weighing these as movies as they are, which I agree. But it is worth noting, as far as Batman cameos go, like I think this one's pretty strong. A lot of people don't like that opening montage where like all the heroes are rounding up these villains and stuff. I think it was good. I think it would have been stronger if this had come later on in the DCEU, which is a problem they had more than once. But it would have been cool if they could have set up more of this stuff beforehand. And then it would have been neat to like, maybe we met some of these villains before. Maybe we dealt a little more with some of these other characters and stuff. Ben, you do appear to be muted right now. Can you? Oh, okay.
I think he knows.
There's things going on in the background.
No, I figured it out.
Keep everyone in stream from having to deal with my background noises.
Sounds good. I just wanted to make sure you knew about that. Okay. Alrighty. So I believe then it bounces back to me for 13.
I believe.
Yes. No, yep. Sorry, I'm catching up with myself now. Batman v Superman is my number 13 choice, which is then the next one. Once again, this might be buoyed a little bit because I was using the extended edition. This one I would argue is a big difference. But I'm not the one who released the wrong version in theaters, so if you guys judged it by its worst version, that's fine.
Yeah, I judged it by its worst version, which is why it's number 17, and all the Lex Luthor-ness that we got from it. So,
and this is the movie that I still have not watched yet.
And that's okay.
That's fine.
You know what? Yeah. I forgive you for sure.
I have a long seating, just distaste for Superman, and I'm going to admit it now. And people might not like me for that.
That's
but
okay. Yeah.
I'm not a fan of Superman, so I didn't want to see it when it first came out.
This is not a good
all
Superman
I hear
movie.
are bad reviews of it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, not only is it a movie that I didn't want to watch in the first place, people tell me it sucks. And so it never did anything for me. The only reason it's at number 17, or sorry, at number 16 and not at number 18 for me is because I didn't want to go in completely blind. So I did a little bit of research on the movie today just to try and see different scenes, see what people liked, see what people didn't like, because I didn't want this to be the only movie that I knew absolutely nothing about. And I saw a lot of great things about the extended cut, and that is actually why it is not very last on my list, because I heard that there was a better version than what was released in the theaters.
I don't know about great things. That's putting it a little mildly. Here's what the extended cut does. And it's insane that this is what the extended cut does, but I have seen both versions, or at least enough of the theatrical to know what's going on here. So they explain the plot better. In the extended version, they cut out scenes that like show you where we're cutting to, like, you know, establishing shots so that we might have a better sequence of logic to it, so it's easier to follow. So you get a better sense of what Lex Luthor's crazy plan is and all of that.
Well, that's
stuff.
good, because this crazy plan was always the worst part for that movie
sense.
for me. I'm like, what are you doing? And then, you know, Batman and Superman have such interesting chemistry in the comics because it's so dark and light, and you don't get to see that. And obviously, you can make fun of the Martha stuff all throughout,
Yeah.
but I won't go that low, right? Or I can't go that low on that. But I'm glad it sounds at least a little less messy.
Yeah, I would still say it's still a problem. It's so long because of that, though. I remember watching it the first time, and I did the first time I watched it. I did wait because I heard all this stuff about the theatrical release. So I was like, I want to see this movie the way it was meant to be seen. So I deliberately avoided it all the way until I could finally watch this R-rated crazy edition of it. And I put it on, and I cleaned up my entire apartment while it was on. And it was an enjoyable experience because of that. I think if I was just sitting there watching it, or worse, in a theater for that long, I would hate this movie, but it's not terrible. But it does do things that I can't reconcile with in both versions that are nuts. It kills off Jimmy Olsen in like the barest little flicker of a moment.
Yeah.
It is established, I think, in the theatrical edition, in like a little voiceover line for sure. Or not, sorry, in the extended edition that happens. It's barely like, I don't know if it's
barely mentioned.
Yeah, I think it's like nothing in the theatrical, and they do a lot of weird choices with stuff like that that just make it not a complete movie. The complete version of this movie is still just okay, though. It's still a murder crazy Batman getting mad at a murderous Superman, kind of, and that's disorganized and not focused. Apparently, what explains Lex Luthor is there's supposed to be, the whole idea was it was Joker and Lex Luthor teaming up, which is actually a real Batman v Superman thing to do, and would have been pretty cool. And that's why Lex Luthor's so eccentric in the movie. But like, I don't understand, that didn't work the way they presented it, because they just sort of smushed that character together, and that was a poor decision. And then as someone in chat mentioned, Doomsday just shows up, and then like that Trinity fight's pretty cool. Like, it's neat.
The fight is cool. Action's cool.
That's really neat too. And like, I agree, but there needs to be a payoff, and like I would assume in the theater I'd be numb at that point. Like, that's so far in.
I was just excited to see the Wonder Woman movies. I'm like, oh my god, Wonder Woman.
That was cool.
I was excited to see her.
Right.
And the thing is, the trailers also did spoil a lot of the movies, so it took away a lot of the excitement. If I saw Doomsday in theaters, I probably would have been more excited than seeing it on TV on a commercial.
And if Wonder Woman just showed up like that, that would have been awesome. Oh, she's in this movie. And but yeah, all that was spoiled, and that was pretty cool. But there really wasn't much to it. Okay, it's enough of that awful movie. So that was my number 13. So then I'm gonna go with my number 12, which is Batman Returns. And then we go to Ben for your number 12.
My number 12 is Batman Forever.
Okay, that should be 3 for Batman Forever.
That should be 3 there as well. Yep.
It is.
I ranked this real low, but I don't actually mind it being around here. This is a lot better than Batman and Robin. Okay, so I loathe Jim Carrey as the Riddler. I would think that would probably work a bit in theory. It doesn't. And Tommy Lee Jones's Two-Face is like even worse.
Then recasting, Batman is it's just so much, man. It's so much.
I don't hate Val Kilmer, but he's not a great Batman. Not a huge fan of that. This movie does do some things that would later become a bit of a recurring thing in comic book movies, like the whole thing where he has Nicole Kidman and Robin in those little tube things, and Batman has to choose who to save. Like, that would become a trope in superheroes and stuff. And
that's true.
Something like he would kind of pioneer a lot of those things. This is one of the early 2-villain comic book movies, although not the first. It's not even the first in this franchise, but like it kind of did, I think, define that. But like in some ways, it did a bad job of that because it just sort of smushes the two villains together. It's like, okay, you guys are gonna work together. Who cares what your plans are? Who cares what your backstory is? They just sort of made Two-Face more like the Riddler to compensate for that, and it was just awful. Yeah, don't like this movie.
Yeah, I definitely echo that. I think, and what sucks is that with these Keaton movies, or we'll just call it the Keaton movies, even though they're not all Keaton movies, but they're in the same franchise. It's just like you start out good, and then you just keep kind of getting worse and worse, and then you get Batman and Robin. It's still counted as the same franchise, even though it's not. Yeah, you just kind of keep getting worse, and then you're like, you know what, let's just reboot all of Batman. And now we're on the 4th reboot of Batman?
So I turned on Batman Forever at 2 a.m. this morning. That is when I watched this movie.
What hell have you been through over the last 4 days?
This
has been unbearable, Arden. I don't think you understand how many Batman movies I've had. No, because I had seen all these movies. It had just been so long since I saw most of them. And then it was just unfair to the movies I hadn't seen in a while. When watching movies I hadn't seen in the first place. But I enjoyed it for what it was. I went into the movie knowing that it was going to be kind of campy, kind of just nonsensical in ways that you're really expecting it to. There's nothing that really surprised me, not for the good or the bad, when watching Batman Forever.
Okay.
It was predictably good in certain aspects. Like I did actually enjoy some of the camera work in this movie. I liked how they were able to use sweeping shots, and I respected it for what that was. But then also, I wasn't expecting great character acting.
I was just gonna say,
I wasn't
like the cinematography in this movie is much better than Batman Forever. Oh, sorry, no, this is Batman Forever. Batman and Robin.
No contest on that. Yeah. But it also is still worse than what came before. So that's
for sure.
Yeah.
It's still awful. It still does a lot of those tight shots. It's still in an already gothic and like overly designed, not overly, but you know what I mean? Like Tim Burton definitely went through a style with his movies and stuff. And it pushed that farther somehow. And I defended Joel Schumacher to a degree, but I don't like that aspect of his design and stuff. Also, Nicole Kidman is a real interesting love interest for Batman. She might be the worst one out of all of these.
She's in this movie, that's for sure.
Yeah. I do like how thirsty she was for Batman. Revisiting that scene, because that stuck out of my memory after like years of not seeing it. I still remember that well, and I had to rewatch those, and I was like, oh yeah, no, this is what I remembered. She's something, but at least there's a character there. Not every superhero love interest could say that. I think I did rank I did once rank all the superhero love movie interests across them, and I think she
Oh, I'm
registered.
sorry.
It was an interesting experience, but she did register a little bit higher than that because there's a person out, and it's like, well, she's a psychologist, so she went to go see Jim Carrey at the end of the movie, and that's more than what you get sometimes out of other movies with similar characters. In some ways, Batman comes across pretty good in that regard, broadly as a franchise character. Okay, so Kat, I believe we go on to your number 12 then. I need to.
Mine is Batman 66.
Oh, okay. Cool. First mention in that one. And then we go to your number 11, I believe.
Are we on? Okay.
Yep, you're.
Okay, yeah. It's weird because we're only on like 13, but it will always lag behind a bit.
So it's my number 11?
Yep.
Yes, yeah.
I did my number 12. Okay, so my number 11 is right. So I do it twice. So my number 11 is Batman Returns.
Okay, that is 3 for Batman Returns. Yeah, I think we're going to be on the similar page about this one too. I don't hate this movie. I think we're right into the territory at this point of like, these are movies all like, and it's just a kind of game of what's above another thing. I think this movie at some point loses me by the time we get to the like little funeral barge for Danny DeVito, where the Penguins are sending him off into the sewers.
Oh my god, all the Penguin stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's before that point, but the movie loses me by then. And like, really, it's like when they have all those little rockets, and that's where like the emotional crux of this movie rests on. It's lost me. I think Danny DeVito as the Penguin is inspired. I think Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman's a little more questionable in comparison. I don't know. It hasn't aged well.
It hasn't aged well, but I will say at least that's a generation where like most people think of Catwoman as that. So I'll give like the iconicness of it.
I love the look of Penguin, it too. The stitches.
The look is interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I remember it really, that stuck in my memory as a kid. I was like, oh, like that's what Catwoman's supposed to look like, and then she doesn't anywhere else, and that threw me off as a kid. All the really positive and strong things I'm going to be saying about Batman in 1989 when we get to it don't quite work here. All that charm seems to ebb away, and I don't quite like this movie as much because of it. I don't hate it.
When I was ranking the movies, I was basing it off of what are the chances that I'm gonna watch this movie again? What like am I going like? Would I rather watch my number 18 movie right now, or would I rather watch my number 17? Would I rather watch my 16? Mm-hmm. And that's why this movie was so low on my list. This was my first non-Batman and Robin, just Batman movie. Like when it was on my list in terms, like it was the first one that came up, just because it felt a little slow to me. It could have been the circumstances of when I was watching it. It's just I don't see myself wanting to go back and needing to watch the Penguin again, ride around on those weird amusement parks.
I was waiting for which one of us would bring it up. I was going to bring it up if sooner or later. That scene is nuts. Like, I don't know where that came from. Christopher Walken's in this movie. I just thought like that was just like like that was a weird detail.
And it was so Christopher Walken. There was no like, you can't close your eyes and imagine you're watching anyone else playing this bad guy.
It was him. He was a huge selling point of this movie too, I feel, at the time. Like, even I'm looking at this poster and his name's in a little box. I don't know if people will be able to make that out on stream, but he's clearly highlighted in the little cast list a little bit. And he was, I believe, relatively popular at the time. I was like 4 when this movie came out, so I don't really know for sure.
He always like goes up and down with his popularity, like especially just depending on like what Oscar movie comes out. It's like,
I should clarify. I think this was like his like at the tail end of his initial heyday, and then obviously he's like a beloved classic thing now, and then like he got parodied on SNL, but I think that cemented him as this sort of legendary fixture of some kind. Batman kind of established that with a few people on this list. We'll get into another one, its predecessor, basically. Although that had been established before. And yeah, I like this movie overall, but it's definitely, I don't think it was anyone's top. It was interesting. I saw Tim Chavez in chat was saying terrible movie. I wouldn't go that far personally. I don't think it's terrible. I do think
middle.
Yeah, I think it runs a little long. Ben, you're kind of hinting at that before, and I agree. It's like it's a little slow at times.
But also, what did you have at that time? You know, I think that's also like, I hate making nostalgia an aspect to this list, but you kind of also have to say this created the opportunities for movies we have today. So in that regard, it's still an important movie.
I was excited when I had to put this movie on. Okay. And that is not something I could say about all the movies when I first started watching them. I'm glad I did rewatch it because it is a good movie in my eyes. Like it is exactly what I remember it to be, and I don't fault it for that. It's what it was, and I didn't feel like it tried to be anything more.
Okay. I definitely bend to history a little bit. I didn't give a lot of credit to this movie in particular for that, because I tended to put a lot more of that on Batman 1989, its predecessor, and we'll talk about that when we get to it. But yeah, that was relevant even for me. I think that's why I put it up above a few other things a little bit. And yeah. Okay. So, Kat, that was yours. So then, Ben, we go to your number 11.
11. Yep. Yeah. So my number 11 is the Lego Movie.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. My number 11 is Batman Begins. So, first time saying that one too. And then we go to my number 10, which is going to be the Lego Movie. Right there with you, Ben. And then we go to yours.
I was worried.
Yeah, that is interesting. Well, we'll talk about it when we get to it. But we'll go to your number 10, Ben.
Oh, to my 10?
Yeah.
So
I had to hesitate because it really rhymed there.
So my number 10 is The Dark Knight Rises.
Wow. Okay. I am a little surprised.
Yeah.
We'll get into that later. Kat, we go to your number 10.
Mine is The Joker.
Okay. I think we're
surprises now.
Yeah, we're also getting into, I was going to say, a level where it's more subjective, I feel, and now it's just going all over the place. Like, my bottom ones were pretty much in line with everyone, but there's more variation going on here. So now, Kat, we go to your number 10.
Mine's Batman Begins.
Okay, that is 2 for Batman Begins. And then we go to your number 9. Now, we're getting into everyone's top 10, even though we haven't even cracked that on this list, which is interesting. Yeah. It happens. It can work that way. So, yeah, sorry, Kat, we go to your number 9. Yeah.
That was Batman Begins.
Oh, that was Batman Begins? Okay, sorry. So then, Ben, we go to your number 9. No.
So, my number 9 is Batman 89.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
That is interesting. My number 9 is Shazam.
Okay. Surprised
that I'm the first one to say that, actually. Number 8 for me is Wonder Woman, which is also a firster. So then we go to your number 8, Ben.
Yeah, so my number 8 is Batman 66.
Okay, that is 2 for Batman 66. And then we go to Kat, your number 8. We have
Mine is Dark Knight Rises.
Okay. So okay. We keep on going to number 7 for you, Kat. This is amazing.
Mine is Mask of the Phantasm.
Okay. Jeez.
Okay. So my number 7 is Shazam.
Okay, that's 2 for Shazam. My number 7 is the Lego Batman movie. But then we get to number 6, and my number 6 is Batman 1966. And we finally hit our next one, which is number 12 for us. So there is...
Wow.
They're going to start for one thing, they're gonna start rolling out heavy now, I feel.
Oh yeah, every other one is going to be a discussion.
But also, there's quite a bit of discrepancy here. So I'm the holdout on this one. I definitely lifted this movie up. I had a feeling I might have because I love the pants off of this movie, but I might be a little alone on that. Okay, so
I think it depends how much you love the show. Do you love the show a lot?
Yeah, I got a lot of love for the show, and then I like this movie a lot in particular. I have it on DVD, and it's actually sitting under my stack of stuff that is a makeshift tripod for my camera. And I've like listened to the commentary. I love the weird little details, like when they filmed the 4 villains in this movie, they filmed it on a Dutch angle because they're crooked. Because they're crooks. And
I never noticed that.
I did not notice that.
I recommend the commentary because it's Burt Ward and Adam West basically doing it in character, and they're adding all these little details and stuff. It's a lot of fun.
So maybe we should rank the commentary as number 1 of all the Batman movies. It's just the commentary, Batman 66.
If we were to rank the commentary, I haven't listened to a single other commentary on this track at all, but that one's like it's like a whole other movie into itself, basically. But it's good, clean fun. I understand why this isn't, everyone's favorite. But yeah, I put it at number 6 because I think it's a lot of fun, and I'm okay with it being at number 12. It's not a work of art or anything like that, but it just tells me that some days you just can't get rid of a bomb sequence where they're running around and there's like a nun and a person in a stroller. I didn't rewatch it for this movie. I just remember all these things. Shark repellent, just like a big famous scene. Then they the whole plan of the villains is to just dehydrate members of the UN with their little gun. But all right, you two can say what you don't like as much about it.
I mean, I don't hate it. I think it's a testament of time. Yeah, I think I don't love the Batman 66 show. It just, I grew up with it a little bit, but I never really was, like, I had Batman the Animated Series at that time. Like, I'd rather watch that than Batman 66.
Okay.
And also, like, it is one of the reasons that people still think that comics are for kids, right? Like, people still think that comics are jokes because of Batman 66. It's still, like, in society because of it. So I think I have a little bit of a negativity to that.
That is a strong argument you just made, especially like I love that animated series and it is better. And even like that animated series is based on Strange Apparitions, which kind of came out after 66 and really did a good job redefining Batman. So there's a strong case there. And I never really thought about people tend to write off comic books a bit and stuff because of that. And it's like, well, that's fair. It's the kind of thing they did those animated movies of like in the recent years, and it works well. Yeah. It works well as a side to Batman that people like. We don't have to make it all grim dark all the time either. So I have.
No, I agree. It's a good contrast now because we do have such a grim, dark Batman sometimes. Like, no, he could be fun too. That's where he did start in the comics too. He wasn't that dark back then.
Yeah. It works better now than back then when all the comics and everything kind of was like that. We were in 1966, kind of right around when Stan Lee was starting to change that a little bit, but especially DC at the time was just CCA, like Comics Code Authority, just same kind of level of stuff. And that was pretty much what 66 Batman represents. I have personal love for it, but it's not. I just wanted to make my impassioned defense before anything else about it.
So this is actually the reason I was late for the live stream.
Really?
This was the last thing I watched before I was like, okay, I am exhausted from all of this Batman. Let me close my eyes, and woke up late. But so this is the most recent Batman that I've actually watched. As in, like, I turned it on at like 5:00 today. So this is really, really fresh in my mind, and I had completely made up my list and left this one off of it, so that way, because I had no idea going into the movie where I wanted it on my list. I ended up putting it at my number 8, and mainly because I genuinely did enjoy the movie. It was exactly what you wanted it to be. When you start off a movie with bat shark repellent, you know you're ready to have a good time. When they zoom in on the bat ladder, at the end of a ladder, they drop out of a helicopter, and there's just a little piece of fabric that says bat ladder. You know you're about to have a good time with the movie. That's at the very beginning, and it sets you up with exactly what what to expect for the rest of the movie, and they don't really let you down from there. So it was a good movie. I don't think it aged very well.
No. Yes.
Watching it today, I was very much, oh, okay, yep, no, this is Batman 66. This was filmed over 50 years ago.
Yeah.
They have no idea what's going on. Accept the movie for what it is, accept the movie for when it was made, and I had a lot better of a time once I did that.
I feel like number 8 is right in lockstep where I put it at like 6. So, you know, pretty close.
Mine was at 12. So.
12? Yeah. It's just
Yeah.
Actually, that's where it ended up ranking, which is kind of funny.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, but that's why it's a collaboration. But, okay. No, that was interesting. My feelings weren't super hurt or anything. I just, I really liked that one. And I gotta say, it originally ranked much higher for me, and then I had to be realistic and scale back my feelings about it relative to, like, how did it age? What do I like about it? Is it just a sort of ironic sense of amusement on my part and that sort of thing? But I do still have a lot of personal love for it. All right, so Ben, I think we go to your number 6 then.
Yeah, okay, so my number 6 is the Lego Batman movie.
Okay, so that is 2 for that one. And Kat, we go to your number 6.
Mine is Shazam.
Shazam. Okay, that's 3 for Shazam. I thought for sure I was going to be the highest person for Shazam. I was the lowest.
I have a fun time with this movie.
I love this movie.
Like,
yeah.
I'm a little surprised at myself for ranking it number 9. I think it's just a matter of we're at the point where I just like all these movies a lot. I love this is one of those movies, and I'm sure some of our people in chat aren't going to be as big a fan of it. Like, I've heard a lot more of division about this movie, but I liked the foster kid aspect of it. I thought it was just
I love the team. Like, the team aspect is really cool.
That was a great surprise too. Yeah. I had managed to avoid that spoiler, so when it happened, I was delighted.
Yeah. So I actually took down note. The team comes in at 1:45.
Wow.
So
I didn't know this movie was that long.
Yeah, no, the team does not show up on screen until 1:45 in. That's when everyone grabs a hold. Say my name, Billy. That's the 45 or an hour 45 mark. So it was really I loved that, and once again, I didn't get spoiled on that before watching the movie. So when I first saw that, I wasn't mad. I was very happy that that's how they decided to do it.
Yeah. I was just someone in chat asked when I first mentioned Shazam, like, oh, Batman's in that movie? It's a really weird appearance. It's the voice of an action figure. It's not.
So we marked down. So when watching the movie, I marked down 3 times Batman was in the movie.
Okay.
Because me and my brother. So my brother had never seen this movie. So when I showed him the list of all the movies that I had to watch before coming on the live stream, he was like, "Okay, I've never seen this one. Let's watch it together." Because he had never heard anything good about the movie beforehand, so he didn't have any urge to watch it. A lot the same way that I had Batman v Superman, but luckily Shazam's a good movie. We watched it together, and he really loved the movie. There was 3 times that Batman was kind of in the movie. There was 2 really quick "I'm Batman" jokes, or just quick
boomerang. The Batarang too, I think was referenced. Yeah,
it shows up. They have it like with the kids' collection of superhero stuff. He has like it's supposed to be a real Batarang that the kid like recovered from a crime scene or something.
Yeah. So there's a quote before the shopping scene where there's just a 3-foot tall Batman
Okay, I
doll.
really only knew about the one. I thought I saw that there was a little voice cameo, and I remembered the one action figure thing. I didn't realize there was even more.
Yeah.
I wasn't hunting for it.
And then also you can kind of count the closed credit scenes since
Yeah.
we're
Sure.
counting Mask of the Phantasm being an animated movie. It is an animated Batman within a movie.
Okay. No, that works. I would count that for sure. Um, yeah, a fun movie overall.
Very solid. Especially, I mean, after you had all the darker stuff, it was kind of fun just to get
Yeah,
something so different than what we were getting.
yeah. A lot of people kind of consider that like some of the diehard DCU fans look at it as a bit of a betrayal, but I think it was a right step in that direction. It still
Yeah.
felt like it was going for its own tone. I can't think of an MCU movie where the villain like shows up to a boardroom but just slaughters everyone in there. And I liked
yeah.
Yeah, it
that
was kind of
scene.
dark. Yeah.
I
It was
liked
definitely dark.
Mark Strong was great as what's his face. So like it's not really the typical Dr. Savannah who's more like a cartoony villain in the comics. I feel, but I
I
like
thought Zachary Levi played a 14-year-old perfectly.
yeah.
I
Yeah, it makes
when
sense.
watching, that's kind of what sold it for me. I could see how people might not like the movie, or how if I'm watching it and Zachary Levi isn't who he isn't the actor that he is, I don't think I'm enjoying the movie as much as I am. But he sells to me that he is a 14-year-old trapped in a body of someone he has no idea what age he is. He's like, I would like some of your finest beer because I have no idea how old I am. Like it's just it made me smile, it made me laugh, and I believed that he was a 14-year-old foster boy who was just given the powers of all of these gods.
I also
Uh,
think it's easily rewatchable, which is nice. I don't say that about all these movies. A lot of
yeah,
them I've only seen once, so that's a movie I have seen more than once, and it's something you could turn on TV and stop in the background and have a good time with it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I've heard before people say that like Zachary Levi versus the kid he's supposed to represent, that the kid acts a lot older because he's been through all that stuff than the 14-year-old might, and Levi kind of plays that younger than the actual character. There is a bit of a discrepancy there, but
I could see that.
I almost don't mind that though.
I don't
If you
either.
kind of picture yourself in the mind of a 14-year-old boy who all of a sudden
Yeah,
is the way he does, you're gonna feel so out of place
I would
that
think that would
almost is the overcompensating.
it would bring a lot of energy to you. That's for sure. Like any person like that, it would be a surge of energy, and I think you would regress a little bit because there's a lot to deal with, especially a younger kid. That would be a natural reaction, and it didn't bug me. Like it's something that someone pointed out. I was like, yeah, I can see what they're saying there, but I thought it was interesting. I also really liked the whole thing with his mom and how that was set up, and they dealt with that. Like a
Yeah, I love that.
lesser comic book movie wouldn't have made it so would have had an easier out for the character in some way or something. Like the mom wouldn't have been kind of just had abandoned him. Um,
I like the character
I,
arcs in general. I think it's a very character-driven movie, and those are
yeah,
the ones I tend to like more.
Yeah.
I agree. All right, so there was Shazam at number 11. um, okay, so I believe that was Kat. That was your number 6, I believe.
Yes.
Okay, so
Hmm.
then we go to your number 5.
Mine's Lego Movie.
Lego Movie.
Okay.
That's 3 for Lego Movie. I don't hate this movie, but when it came to ranking this, I found this one drifted down quite a bit, and I didn't have as much enthusiasm for it as I did after like first watching it. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's because the I talked about like the surprise of the original Lego Movie was gone in Lego Movie 2, and because I can't recreate that feeling, maybe I don't feel as strongly about this one. I'm not entirely
I
sure.
get that.
Uh,
I get that a lot of the pull from the Lego movie is that it's these items that we saw growing up. It's these things that we're so ingrained in who we are. We know what Lego is. We know what Duplo is when it shows up. It's just kind of what it is, and we all accept that. And without, or this movie has the big surprise of, okay, these stories have played out in our heads, but until we find out that this is yet again just one story being played out by a kid's imagination, it, without knowing that, you can just assume that this is a Lego world, and you are completely okay with that. And then it subverts your expectations, and you don't mind it when they completely flip up the script on you, and you don't mind it moves
I thought it was
up
a great
the list
twist.
further than I think.
Yeah, I think that twist really makes the movie. I really enjoy this movie. I think it's something so different from other kids' movies at the time. And it's something I could definitely rewatch and have a good time with it. Like Batman's great, as you know, this is a Batman list. I love him in it, and I like all the different characters. And I do agree, Lego Movie 2 really was bad, and I think that could give you a little, bad taste for this one. But I still really enjoy the original. I do wish they kept it to be just the original, but
Yeah.
I have a good time with this one.
You ranked it a little bit higher than us, but not by much. I had it at number 10. Ben, what did you have it for? You were
I actually had it relatively low. Mine was at 11, so one less than yours.
I was
So
gonna
11,
say
10, and 5.
Yeah, you were pretty close to me, and like I don't hate this movie or anything. It definitely was more fun at like I don't know any emotion I have to it is really just tied to that first viewing, and I don't know if I would feel the same way like going back to it again. I don't feel like I had much of a desire to do that. That being said, I really enjoyed that first watch, and you mentioned the twist and how it handled that thing, and even the message was really well done and handled. I even like, and I don't know. I think in the world of other movies, maybe if we're judging these as like kids movies, like separate from all this Batman stuff, I'd probably rank it really high, especially in terms of like its history. We'll say it's not old or ancient, but it really did a good job at digging into like the special and all that stuff that it's dealing with. Like the core of its plot is lampooning like a lot of movies, well beyond like kids movies, just action movies in general. Yeah, and I think it did a really good job at that. And even like all the stuff about conformity, like there's some good aspects to it that I really like. And it seemed to fit with Lego. I felt like it was getting into a Lego issue even of like, well, we got all these pre-built sets where you kind of really only build them a certain way, and it was talking a bit more about like, Legos can be whatever a kid's imagination is, and that's like the central plot going on, and like the conflict with the father. I thought that was neat, and that was what you were hinting at before, Kat, about like the big twist and stuff. It's a good movie, and it's just funny how Batman's just like a main character in that. Like the novelty of that, it's easy to forget now, but that's pretty damn cool. Okay, so Ben, I believe we're on your number 5.
Okay, so for my number 5, I have Batman Begins.
Okay, that's it. Yeah, there's another one. I had this.
I remember
what were you gonna say? Oh, I was just gonna say I had this
11.
At 11. Yeah.
I had a 9. I remember when I first saw this movie. I mean, I was pretty young when I saw it. I fell asleep. It was when The Dark Knight came out. I rewatched Batman Begins. I was like, oh, this is actually like not bad. Not as good as Dark Knight, but it's a little boring. I think that's the best thing I could say is just like it's pretty boring, the movie.
I get that. I get that a lot.
I watched I'm definitely the oldest person out of us 3. I watched this when it came out around when I graduated high school. There's a lot of I think I waited till home release, I should say. So it was before that it came out. But I remember like all that stuff about the car, and like they were rebooting Batman, which at the time was a very new concept, and there's a lot of controversy around that. And then when you watch the actual movie, it was pretty impressive. That being said, I've rewatched this movie since then, and it didn't stick with me as much. Kat, you said it was a little boring. That's exactly how I feel about it now. I find
it's so long.
Lags. Yeah.
I found that was an issue that I had with a lot of Batman movies. I'm obviously the one that pulled it up because I had it at my number 5. I I felt that the it kind of drags on, it's too long, is an argument that I found myself having for most of the movies on these lists. I found there was a
Okay.
lot of movies that I found just went a little too long or were just a little too slow. Um,
And
but when I watched this movie, I really, really loved the Scarecrow in it. I
okay,
found myself
He
when
was
I
good in it.
he's
rewatched
a real
this movie,
treasure.
the reason it's so high up on my list is because I genuinely believed in the Scarecrow.
Okay.
I liked how he was played. The the effects, they weren't phenomenal, but looking back on them, they weren't bad.
No,
I watched it literally yesterday, and I was happy with it. I was
I
okay
definitely
with
Because
it.
I feel
don't.
like it was less about the
So
effects; it was more about the stunts, and that's what's cool about the movie and why it
Yeah.
like ages a little bit better.
yeah,
I think
so
visually this movie looks great still. Yeah, it didn't feel
Mhm.
dated to me at all. Um,
no, the reason it got so brought up on my list was the Scarecrow. Though
th-
I
yeah.
loved the effects whenever people were
This
inside of
is
it. When you saw the Batman,
yeah.
it
I was gonna
I
say this
enjoyed
is
it.
our first Nolan movie, and it's kind of cool. The Scarecrow is just a recurring thing. That was a great choice because Cillian Murphy's fun. He never becomes a big character again, but I think that wouldn't have been super welcome. But him just showing up in weird little bits is so great in Dark Knight and Rises. Um,
Yeah,
and this was in a lot of ways set up for what Nolan would go on to do, which I,
Oh, for sure.
based on what's going on here, obviously we have a good amount of regard for. Although there's, yeah, one of these movies is going to be interesting. um, but yeah, I don't hate this movie or anything like that. But it's not going to be my favorite, and it's interesting that this is the one that didn't lag for you as much as some of the others, man. But you know,
yeah.
like everyone's got their own mileage and stuff like that. Uh, I just am surprised.
To be fair, it was the first one that I watched of it. So I'm like,
Oh, okay.
okay, I'm getting ready to start a new Batman because that's what we're doing. So I'm like, okay, I've got to figure it out. And I enjoyed it. It was something that I will see myself rewatching this movie relatively soon. I will find myself rewatching this movie.
That's fair. Yeah. Okay. So then we go on to my number five, which is Mask of the Phantasm, which is actually only two check marks. Um,
Yep.
and then we go to my number four, which is Batman 1989, which is also two check marks. So Ben, we go on to your number four.
So my number 4 is Wonder Woman. So
Okay.
also two check
Yep.
marks.
Ooh, narrowing things down rapidly. So, Kat, what is your number four?
Mine's Lego Batman. We
Okay,
got three for that.
that is our
Okay.
next one. Uh, I like this movie a lot. Um,
Honestly, for me, it's one of. I mean, obviously, it's one of my favorite Batman movies. It has the Bat family, even though obviously
mhm.
it's so silly and whatever. But I think that's one thing that's always been missing for me for every Batman movie is that they've never done the Bat family correctly. And why I think Batman the Animated Series and all these other things work is because of the Bat family. So I liked it. It's just so much fun, and it's short, and obviously they play on the Lego movie storyline, and what's his name, Arnett does a great job as Batman, and
Yeah.
yeah, I like this one a lot.
Um, oh boy. I thought I was. This is another one where I'm surprised that I was the lowest because I love the pants off for this movie. Um, yeah, you talked about the Bat Family. I like that. I liked all the villains. They're like I'm a big fan of like some of the alt comedy people that show up. Like the guy who voices Scarecrow, Jason Mantzoukas is funny. Jenny Slate does Harley Quinn. All these people I know from other stuff like Parks and Recreation and stuff, and they're all great in here. Michael Cera as Robin's just
Yeah,
awesome. I forget.
Rosario Dawson does
Yeah.
Batgirl. Yeah.
And then I don't know what Voldemort plays Alfred, and then they have someone else voice Voldemort in this movie because this is also a Batman movie where he goes up against like Daleks and Sauron and all these characters. but also I think it has a solid message about Batman, and like kind of criticizes a lot of the more grim dark, like over like, well, okay, what have we got, Batman v Superman take of Batman a little bit, and pushes back against that. This also has my favorite opening in a Batman movie. Like, I don't remember all the lines, but they just like, they have like the like weird Batman quotes going on, and then they have like the huge plane scene where it's like, oh, like we got all these like, we're two pilots and we're best friends, and it made me laugh, and kept me entertained start to finish. Solid ending too. Like, I thought that last act. A lot of these movies do have a problem with the third act. I thought this one was great. Um,
Yeah, this has a really good third. And again, it's short, so
yes,
it gets to the point
yeah.
very easily.
This one didn't bore you, right, Ben? I would hope that this one would
No,
be
no.
pretty.
Uh, so this movie, when I saw it or when I put it on, I actually went into the movie thinking that I'd never watched it before.
Okay.
Um,
Oh,
and
interesting.
then I put it on, and 5 minutes in, I'm like, oh wait, no, I've totally seen this movie.
Okay.
I had completely forgotten that I had actually watched the movie. Um,
Which is
and a
saying
lot of
something.
things flooded,
Yeah.
yeah, well,
No,
a lot of
that's
things flooded back to my mind, but
okay.
I actually really, really loved it. This
Oh,
was
okay.
number 6 on my list. I was actually glad that I had forgotten that I had watched this movie before. I was excited going into it. I remembered a lot of things, but I didn't remember a whole ton. Um,
Okay.
it was over the top, and it was exactly what I wanted out of that. It it was just a good movie in my opinion. I didn't see much of it that I genuinely disliked. And I try to find things.
Mm-hmm.
And I genuinely liked the movie. I was glad that I got to watch it again for the first time. Like, it, even though it wasn't for the
Okay.
first time, it felt like it was when I watched it, and it
Oh, that's
that I
interesting.
got to watch that movie.
Because I thought you were gonna go a little bit more in the direction of like, oh, it was a little forgettable. Because, but
Oh,
if
that's what I thought going in. I thought the Lego Batman movie was going to be much further down on my list when I first saw it, because I was like, well, clearly it's not something that I must have cared about.
yeah.
It no, I it was a good movie, and if you're not remembering it, maybe exactly how we may be talking about it, give the movie a chance, because I'd completely forgotten about it, but genuinely enjoyed every minute of watching that movie.
Fair enough. Um, I will say oh, what was I gonna say? I liked oh, that's my train of thought. Oh well. Oh, I was gonna say okay, a couple things. I really liked the use of Siri. I thought that was like, they just
Yeah.
took that robot's voice, and but they, I don't know, they did a great job with that. And they also, I think, like just had a lot of fun with like there's that big musical number where like Batman's got the music playing, and they have all those cars going, and it's like, yeah, they, all those cars are definitely like available for sale as Lego sets and stuff, but I felt like they incorporated that all well without it
Yeah.
feeling like cheap. There's a lot of, oh, and then the other thing is that I still think about all the time is they have that montage of all the Batman movies, like we're talking about this list, and he's like, well, you went
Oh, I
out in
love that.
1966, 1989, and then I just go through all those, and like all the little images and tiny jokes that they insert in that stuff. It's just a really
Yeah.
fun movie.
Yeah,
Much
I
better than Lego Movie 2.
Yeah, so
they
and
made a really good reference to the Dark Knight that I was when it was just an offhand comment, but if you catch it, you're like, oh my gosh, that's hilarious, that's awesome, I'm so glad they included it in the movie.
yeah,
There's so many little Easter eggs that I just feel that it you can't go wrong with something like that.
even Kat, you mentioned like they have little tiny little references to the Lego movie, which I thought was funny, and like how that all fits together is like, oh, that's pretty clever. Like they do call him a master builder, and he does have those abilities and stuff. I liked that.
Didn't they have one of the characters too? Was it I don't remember. Maybe I'm meshing them all together, but I feel like that's some of the Lego Movie characters too.
I think they show up, and then I was also thinking like they talked about the tectonic plates and stuff at one point, and it's a direct reference to like how the different worlds work. Like they actually a little like just in the background of a news thing, kind of get into a little bit of like how this all relates to like the Lego Movie. I was like, that's why not? Just a fun little extra detail that I quite enjoyed. Uh, yeah, it's. I was also gonna say. So we did. I was 7. I think Ben, you were 6, and Kat, you went to number 4. Like that's I think one of
Mm-hmm.
the most consistently highest rated ones, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Too. So speaking of which, I think. Yeah, Kat, you should be number 3 then.
All right,
So-
my number 3 is Batman '89.
Okay, so that is Batman '89 then. Interesting. I did number 4. Ben, what were you for that one? I think you were.
I was at number 9.
Okay, so
Pretty
you were a little bit lower than us, but still top 10. I will
Yeah.
say, I kind of was hinting at this earlier. I gave this movie a lot of credit. Like, this movie kind of established a lot of Batman things.
It changed the game and also established a lot of superhero things, and that's why
Yeah.
like it's not like as a
Joker
person,
things.
it's Joker thing. Oh, for sure. As a person, it's not one of my favorite movies. Like it's not something I
Yeah.
tend to go back to. But as you know, obviously a critic, it's so important. It's just such an important movie, which is why I ranked it so high because it's just
Yeah, and I was right
Batman
there with
wouldn't
you.
look like Batman. Yeah.
Yeah, like I was one off, and I think we were in the same agreement. There's little details I love about this movie, like the last scene where they're going up the tower. At some point, they're like, "Oh, 5 minutes until this bomb goes off," or whatever they say. Whatever that time frame they give is the time frame of that finale, and it unfortunately leads to a little bit of a slowdown because they have to climb the tower, and it takes a long time because it is real time 5 minutes, which is a lot in
Crazy.
movie time land. Yeah,
But they do that a lot throughout this movie. Even the opener of that movie is like you're looking at the sewer for like
Yeah.
5 minutes.
I don't know if some of that's relative to its date or just the way Tim Burton was setting it up, but I like this movie. And then it has like that mirror scene, which has been like that goes beyond comic book movie influence. That's film influence in the film industry and stuff. And gets into the history of it and all of that stuff. I have heard people complain that Jack Nicholson's performance is more Jack Nicholson-y than Joker-y, but I like him.
I like it though. I
Yeah.
feel for the version of Joker that he is playing, I have zero problems with it. I think he plays his Joker phenomenally.
Yeah.
He's
But you
fun
can't
too.
say,
There's
like,
that scene
yeah.
where he pulls that giant gun out of like his pants to shoot at the parade float or whatever. That was great. I like him. And then it's creepy too when the newscasters get that smile going. Like that's still one of the better ways they've done that, I think. However, I guess it's just a makeup effect or whatever. It looks great.
Well, I really liked how they kind of introduced what was really going on with the Joker, where you have this newscast where it's like, okay, these two models, they both have been mysterious. Like we have no idea what's going on, but here's some photos of them, and they've got the white face and the big smiles.
Oh yeah.
And us as the viewers, we know what's going on, but they don't in the newsroom. And then all of a sudden, the female host starts
Right.
laughing.
Yeah, that's it. Like he does a
And
lot
laughing.
of sequences well like that. The other thing I
Yeah.
just realized we didn't talk about it for Batman Returns. Michael Keaton as Batman is amazing.
Yeah, for sure. I
He's
mean,
still
iconic.
one of my favorites. Maybe I don't like kind of hedge and flow. Like I think if Ben Affleck was in better movies, it might be him. But
It's hard because I don't know if we've had the perfect Batman yet
Nah.
for live action. Because I do think Kevin Conroy is the perfect Batman, obviously animated. But
Yeah.
live action, I don't think we've
Yeah.
seen him yet.
And even like because we got a taste of what Kevin Conroy as live action Batman, where it's just like, animated. I agree with you, but I don't know if it translates to live action so well. And I love
didn't.
Kevin Conroy, but yeah, you get what I'm saying then. And the like, it gets into what I was saying about like Clooney made a pretty good Bruce Wayne. I think Keaton's the one that balances the two the most, but like you're saying, like they never quite done it perfect. It's why I'm not like dead set against Pattinson or whatever. It's like I don't
No,
know.
me either. He's a good
There's
actor.
always room for improvement or finding a balance and stuff because I don't think we've ever quite hit that mark. And then, like you said, he's a good actor. If you go beyond Twilight, he's done some cool stuff. There's that Lighthouse movie.
I've heard good stuff about that. And then
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
other one, the directors who did Uncut Gems, which I love that movie. I forget the movie that he was
Oh,
in. Good something, Good Boy. I don't. Let me
yeah.
see.
I've
Robert.
heard of that. I haven't seen it, but
It's definitely good.
the Lighthouse
let's
movie is
see.
nuts.
I've
It's
heard
like a
great stuff
horror
about that.
Shutter movie. It's very different. But it's by the guy who did the Vivitch. You know that horror movie.
Oh, I like Vovich.
Yeah, but same kind of thing where you gotta be paying attention and following that thing. 'Cause, they're doing like it's closer to our more modern time period than The Witch is, so it's a little easier to follow, but still there's a lot going on there. And Robert Pattinson murders a seagull. Good. That's just he. Anyways, there's more to it than that movie. Yeah, but yeah, okay. So who did? Okay, so that was your number three. So
So it
then
would be my.
I was gonna say Ben, it should be your number three. Sorry, it's
So for my number 3, I have Joker.
okay. That goes to my number three, which would be the Joker. Now, Kat,
You got
so
that one high.
as I say, Ben and I ended up being in lockstep. What was that position for you, Kat?
That was 10 for me. So
Okay.
I have feelings.
I would
on the
love
Joker.
to hear your thoughts on the movie.
Well, because I have feelings about
we
this
were
movie too.
very high on the list. I'd like to hear.
But
what
I
you
don't
would say.
unconditionally love this movie either. So you go ahead,
Yeah.
Kat. You start because you're out of lockstep with us, but or not like locks,
Yeah.
but I might not disagree with a lot of what you're going to say, though. I will say that.
Yeah.
So for me, I think the acting obviously was good. I mean,
Mhm.
Joaquin Phoenix. Well, I mean, there's two things. I'm not a comic purist when it comes to films. It's like I don't care that it wasn't like a Batman movie. I actually liked the Batman stuff in it. Like I thought it was cool the way they like tied it in the end. Mine is I think the message, honestly, of like
Sure.
the scene with Robert De Niro where you get to see him shoot him on TV and it's just such a mixed message because they're trying to show something about mental health and say, you know, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but then you're also showing someone shoot someone on television and like try to be famous with that. And that's just such a like, what are you trying to say? Like, especially in the world we live in now, I think that was more my issue was that it didn't really know itself thematically. Like the acting was fine, but for me, the script wasn't great. And that's why I brought it down so much because of the themes of the movie.
Yeah.
I get
I don't disagree with the thing you said, really. This is a weird movie where, and I don't usually do this. Like, I guess we don't like rank movies all the time, but even in the way I personally evaluate movies, a good performance shouldn't, but like it doesn't normally elevate something so much for me. I don't know how much I like this movie, but I love, like, Joaquin Phoenix's performance is what brings it from probably around number 10 to around number 3 for me. And I don't know how that worked out that way because I agree about the message. I don't like how much this movie just lifts ideas and stuff from Martin Scorsese's films. When they have that title screen and it's that big Joker thing that fills the title or like fills the screen, you know what I mean? Like just Joker in big words.
Yeah.
I laughed because I was like, holy crap! Like we're just going full Scorsese, and it didn't let up on that at all. But that performance pulled me in, and I absolutely feel he deserved an Oscar for it. It's one of those things where I feel the Oscars were very appropriate with the Joker, where I don't at all think that deserved Best Picture or Best Director or anything like that. But Joaquin Phoenix deserved that Oscar.
Yeah.
And I think his whole attitude towards portraying the Joker and like the way he went about that performance was great. Like like I could wrap my head around it all. It's not creepy and weird like Jared Leto, where he's like sending a rat to Margot Robbie.
Different.
And not cool with that stuff. Like, and I don't know what kind of method acting, whatever. He did a great job with it, and however it came about achieving that, I was on board. I the message is nuts. I don't like there is something with mental health going on, but it came out of nowhere. That scene where he shoots Robert De Niro, I remember being surprised at just being like, oh, like we're winding down the movie now. Like I there was something missing there, or something that
Yeah.
a connection that I couldn't make. That I agree, like they were going for something, but I didn't quite follow them on it. And it was obviously a criticism of mental health or whatever, but it didn't feel like that was built up enough.
So when I rewatched this movie, this was another movie that I got to watch with my brother,
Okay.
and he never actually got to see the end of this movie when he first saw it. He went to the theater and they had to leave right after the hospital scene with his mother.
Okay. Okay.
So I don't know how much more you want me to say from that, but
Well,
that's how
that's
far we
whatever
got.
you're comfortable with. I got like
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Well, like what I mean by like spoiler wise, but like so
Oh, okay.
I
Yeah,
know
that's
we're
fine.
ranking movies and we can kind of talk about
I think
whatever,
this
but
movie's
still.
okay. There's
Um,
there's one movie I'm worried about spoiling, and it's not this one because
yeah,
Phantasm. Phantasm. I think we should dance around a little bit of the
yeah.
spoilers.
Oh yes, no, I will be very careful around that one.
But
Uh,
this one's fine. Um,
so my brother actually had to leave during the movie because his partner is extra sensitive around the topics in the movie. So I got to watch it with him and see his takes on it. Because when I first watched it, I was over the moon about the movie. I raved about it. I thought it was probably one of the best movies I'd seen in a while, just because I was so enthralled with Joaquin Phoenix and what he was able to do. He made me feel uncomfortable, but not in a way that I took issue with. I was kind of
yeah.
more than happy to sit there uncomfortable. And that's something that a lot of movies can't make me do. When I get uncomfortable in a movie, often I'll just turn it off because clearly I don't want to. This was one that I could feel it. I'm like, okay, I might not be fully comfortable with everything that's going on, but this is something that I want to watch. This is something that makes me feel something while watching it, and that's why it was so high up on my list. My
Okay.
brother genuinely enjoyed seeing the end of the movie, and he had far more questions than anyone could answer with the end of that movie. Considering he had seen the beginning of the movie twice and had never seen the ending of the movie, never took time to process, okay, what could this movie have meant? What could it have been? Was the entire movie real? Was the entire movie that funny joke that he was laughing at? Was that what he was laughing at? Was it something that us the viewers never see that he was laughing at?
Okay.
I really liked it.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, it's a complicated one. I really don't like I have a lot of mixed feelings about it, and it became very
Yeah.
high in spite of that. And I still like I feel like I still have to mull that around in my brain a bit, I guess, or something. I really I don't know. It's a unique beast. Out of everything on this list, I knew it was going to be one that I was like I like aspects of it a lot, but I think other aspects of it are kind of goofy. I feel
Yeah,
like you were talking about good creepy, or like a watchable form of creepy. Like I don't think this movie is trying to justify an abuser's behavior, which I think would have been a
yeah,
lot more worse to watch. I guess like
yes,
I mean, well, not I guess the Joker's pretty abusive, like he murders people and all that stuff. But there's like, I'm thinking of even like that whole thing with his girlfriend. It's like yeah, it's creepy and it's weird, but it's not like there's it's more about his internal psychology than him like feeling entitled to that relationship. It's just like no, that's his
There's no
escape.
time we never saw them also like interact in real time where he tried to really
Yeah,
do anything to her. It was just like, oh, we're not together. Like, what are you talking about? It's just in his
yeah,
mind.
it,
So I
it
think in
would have
that
been better
regard,
to
you don't say anything.
follow up on that a little bit too. But I thought
yeah,
like that was a neat twist, and like you were talking about the ending. Like, aside from, I was a little thrown off by the abruptness around the talk show, but once we got out into the street, this is winning me over. The Bruce Wayne stuff, like whatever. I knew that was coming, so I can't really judge that from an honest emotional perspective. I just it's like, well, now that scene's happening, but the actual riot, and then it just sort of ends there, and then we get to like go to this mental asylum, and it's just like he just starts killing, and it's like, well, feels like we've gotten to Joker like at the end of that movie, and I liked that aspect of it too. But yeah, I like it's weird to be that mixed about something, and for me to rank it number 3. But I'm you were talking about Kat, like you made this list on your computer and then wrote it out. I did the same thing because I bounced around a lot with some of these, and this one in particular I struggled with a bit, but I'm happy with its position. All right, so then I think
this is my 4th take of the list, so I fully get.
Really? Oh man.
Yeah, it took me 4 writings of the list for me to figure out where everything belongs.
It's a hard list.
It was an interesting one, and I left it open for interpretation. So then we get to my number 2, which is the last movie that hasn't been mentioned yet, The Dark Knight.
Nice.
And that goes to you, Ben.
So for my number 2 is also The Dark Knight.
Okay. And Kat, what is your number 2?
Mine is Wonder Woman.
Okay. There's Wonder Woman. I said Wonder Woman at number 8. Not sure where you were, Ben.
I had Wonder Woman at number 4. So.
Oh, okay. I was a little low, but I don't hate this movie. I just don't love the third act.
That's understandable. For me, just the experience of going to see a Wonder Woman movie, and that was like the first female-led movie. I'm like, oh my, it's just such an awesome experience, and I can look over the third act in all honesty, just because I love the character. Yeah, it's not bad. A, and then B, the Wonder Woman's so great. Like, and I love Steve's stuff, and I like the Diana, and I don't know, I love this movie. It's just so rewatchable for me.
Oh sure.
I found myself excited to watch it again. I know I will watch it again after this, after we're done talking. Maybe not this week, maybe not next, but it's going to be a movie that I'm going to watch relatively soon. It made me happy. It's exactly what I wanted out of a Wonder Woman movie. I know I've been saying that kind of that phrasing a lot, but it made me happy. I wasn't searching for anything else. Like there was bits and pieces that I was like, okay, I would like if they did this, but I was able to overlook it. Yes, I didn't like the end of the movie, but I had to put it high on my list because I'm going to rewatch the first 2/3 of that movie any day. And so I had to put it higher on my list because the first 2/3 were so good.
I put this above Shazam, so I feel like that. Like I really like this movie, obviously, because I don't think I would do that otherwise. And it's important historically. This is, I mean, aside from being like the first proper female-led superhero movie, we'll say.
Yeah, we won't count Elektra and all those other
Supergirl,
ones.
I was thinking of too. But like this one's polished. It's also the kind of the first good DCEU movie. I think we can all agree on that.
I agree.
And I love the No Man's Land scene. I mean, everyone does, but I just
love that scene. One of my favorite comics.
I even like the idea of Ares and like the whole betrayal. It's the actual execution of that fight that I wish was just a little. Just had to do a little more. I brought it up for like Lego Batman movie because that's the movie where it's like, well, we have all these things going on and it's exciting and every character gets to do their own thing, and I felt like that was lacking in Wonder Woman. But I do also love it. I also think it's such a solid foundation. I wanted to bring this up because I don't normally watch trailers much for movies because, well, they
spoil.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
I have not watched trailers in years. So
yeah.
I
that being said, I cannot stop watching the Wonder Woman 1984 trailer. Someone clued me into it at some point or something, and I saw it, and it's so cool. The they will get you pumped. The content they show in it doesn't give away too much, but it's just enough to be like, oh, like I want to watch this. And it's going to benefit from that sequel effect that comic book movies tend to benefit from, where like when we get past that first movie, we can really grow, and I think Wonder Woman has that potential. Not really much of a Batman movie, but that's okay. It qualified, and it's a good movie. Like it's kind of neat how there's like this relationship between Batman and Wonder Woman, even if it ultimately isn't going to amount to anything now. I don't mean relationship, but like working relationship.
Yeah, like
that
dynamic.
part of Justice League I don't care for, but like how they build up the Justice League together as a team was a cool idea, and that aspect of it was great here. Okay, that was your number 2, Kat. Wait.
Yes.
Then you would go. I must have gotten the order backwards.
Do we want to flip it so you
should.
just say your number 1 first?
Yeah, because that's how it was supposed to be. I must have. Yeah. It was supposed to work out that way. I must have gotten flipped around.
It must have got thrown out because of when I jumped in.
Yeah, which is fine.
If I would have jumped in at the beginning,
because the whole point of you going third, Kat, was that you were going to get the last choice here, so that you get number 1 technically. Although we're at number 4, so we're missing something.
Yeah, I don't know which one we're missing on the list somehow. Because we're not missing anything.
I forgot to write something down then.
Let me see.
Hold on a sec. Wonder Woman, Joker, Batman, like a Batman movie. Okay, I just need to go by my 3 check marks. Joker, Batman, 19.
And someone's calling.
1966. Well, it's a good time for it. Wonder Woman.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't even know what you're missing.
I must have just forgotten to write it down. I think I found it. Batman Returns, which should be above, I think, Batman Forever. We can agree on that, right?
Yeah, I believe that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it turned out.
Okay, this isn't a huge deal, but for our sake. Okay, so okay, I'll do it in 1 second. Let me just do this right before I get super confused. Well, this is a much less of a screw up than the one Ben and I had in the MCU, where we had to stop and go through it for a minute and figure out what
really?
Okay, granted, there was over 30.
Yeah, well, no,
I don't know how you guys.
It was about 25, and we were going for about 3 hours. So I'm glad that it didn't take as long for one thing. Not that but I didn't want to take up too much of anyone's time. I had a feeling it would be less, and Returns. Okay, there we go. That makes more sense. So my one is number 4. Good for it. That's I would say that's about I'm happy with that spot, even if I didn't quite rank it.
That's exactly where I put
okay,
it.
So the number 3 and my number 1 is The Dark Knight Rises. This
That was my number 8.
I noticed that it came up a little earlier with the 2 of you. What was that for you, Ben?
Yeah, it was my number 10.
10, yeah. So here's the thing, and it didn't start out this way. This was not number 1 on my first draft. And it was indeed, I remember watching this movie in theaters and being like, oh, I didn't like it very much at all. I felt it dragged on. It wasn't really what I expected after coming off of The Dark Knight. But this is one of those movies that every time I watch it, I like it a little bit more. I notice little things. I can appreciate the differences. Being able to watch it at home as opposed to in theaters means I can pause and take a break halfway through because it is quite long. And I really just appreciate its take on Bane, the way they closed out the Nolan trilogy. People in chat are kind of calling it because I've kind of eked out this opinion before for longtime viewers, but this is a big movie for me. I don't know why. It's just kind of risen to the top over time because of it. And yeah,
I think that the reasoning you said you liked Bane, I didn't like Bane, and maybe it was the whole voice thing. I like Bane and Harley Quinn, the anime series, because they make fun of the voice. And also, I think
great in that. That show is so good.
It's my favorite show on right now. It's so good.
I agree.
I love it. I love it so much. And we could talk about Harley Quinn forever. Which is weird because I think this season, usually season 1's always the best for a show, but season 2, man, it's been every episode I've really enjoyed.
Oh yeah, I'm behind a little bit. I haven't seen season 2 yet. That's good to know.
Oh, season 2's got some good Bane stuff, and it's even better. But yeah, going back to The Dark Knight Rises. Yeah. I honestly am thinking more of my theater experience, being so hyped because it was such a hyped up movie. And again, this is before the MCU was big and is what it is now. And just having a very long movie was even something different because usually the superhero movies, it wasn't that long. It's a very, very long movie. But yeah, I think I like the twist overall. I like the Talia al Ghul thing. I enjoyed that, but it just wasn't as good as Dark Knight. Dark Knight for me, and maybe I'm teasing what my number one is. It's just a perfect Batman movie.
Fun little fact: we actually will know each other's thing if you can kind of put two and two together. I did piece that together, but yeah, and I mean, Dark Knight was my number two. I like both of these movies a lot. I think Nolan's take on Batman really crystallized with these two movies, and they're right at the tippy top for me. I was a little surprised you guys were lower, but I don't begrudge you or hate it. I came around to this movie, and I get, like you talked about the Talia Ghul twist. That really doesn't factor into my opinion much. I don't think there's much to that. It was like, okay, well, that character was just introduced to us this movie, and it wasn't. I didn't see it coming, but it didn't have a lot of investment in that character either. I like Anne Hathaway's Catwoman, though. I thought
that is definitely the number
she's
one.
Not in enough,
reason to see it.
You know,
I agree. I wish they made that Catwoman movie. In this day and age, we would have gotten that Catwoman movie.
Yeah,
but man, she was perfect.
That was the thing. Catwoman. I didn't know that they were gonna do thinking of doing a spin-off.
They always rumored it. They always and she wanted to do it. She wanted to do it, and she always like, yeah, I want to do a Catwoman movie, and they just never did it.
She was so great. She got to use Batman's bike at one point. It's just a well done scene where
the ending was good.
Yeah.
I love the ending with Gordon Levitt and Batman, like how he just kind of gives up on being Batman. I'm like, oh, that's a perfect ending.
Yeah.
The
timeline's weird on that, but I like it.
To it. They perfectly alluded to it, in my opinion. When I first made this list, this movie wasn't actually even in my top 10. I had to move it up because I actually enjoyed the end of that movie. I didn't think I would. Remembering back from when I first watched it, I remember not liking the ending of the movie. But rewatching it, there's nothing bad I can say about this movie. At least nothing bad I want to say about this movie, I should say. But it had to make my top 10, so that's why I put it at number 10. But like the end of that movie, I was okay with it. They alluded to it nicely. You're kind of like, you're fully okay that he ends up together with Catwoman, and it just like I was happy to see Alfred just have his food, have his.
You gotta have his happy little moment. I liked that too. And even like the way there wasn't a huge thing. Like they talk about the timeline's weird just in terms of like he isn't actually Batman for any extended period of time across these three movies, and that weighs a little bit on Rises, where he's supposed to be like, oh, like can't do this anymore. The time span of that is a little off, but it doesn't bother me because this movie establishes enough on its own, and then it goes off in its own direction, and it has so many iconic scenes. Like I don't know how much this movie makes sense or logic.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it really, like there's that stadium scene, the plane stuff at the beginning, the chanting in the prison. There's a lot of iconography.
Is what sticks in my head.
It really, I don't know. It ended up, it's had an impact on me over time, and it might be my favorite Nolan movie overall. I haven't seen Dunkirk. I think that's the only one I haven't seen actually, but I don't think that would change this opinion. I really spoke to me.
I haven't seen was Dunkirk as well, I think.
Unless he's done like stuff from way back that I'm not thinking of. There's that
his first one's Memento, and I think that's it.
Have you guys heard of that new movie he's doing? It looks insane. It's called.
No. I have not. No.
It's called Tenet. It's like a weird time travel movie. I encourage you to check out the trailer and realize like, oh, it's like Inception times 10, and just.
Oh, that's cool.
Do it. The only thing is, and I hope they don't actually do that. Like this was like one of those movies they refused to budge the release date around the coronavirus, so it's supposed to come out in like 2 weeks, and now it's very ambiguous whether or not. Yeah, that's why I was like, I haven't heard anything since like months ago about that, so I don't know if that's still the case. Maybe they've caved into reality at this point when they realize no one's gonna go. But yeah, okay. So I think that's a fair. I mean, that was my personal baby. I'm happy with that. So Ben, we go to your number 2, which was my formal number 1.
Or my number 1, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, your number 1. My former number 1.
Yeah, which is number 2.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, that's what I meant.
for my number one, I have Mask of the Phantasm.
I started typing it before you sent it. I no, but this was for a while my number one, and I'm a huge love this movie. I'm glad someone gave it similar love. So I'll let you go first, Ben, because it is your personal choice.
So when I watched Mask of the Phantasm, this movie to me feels like it has the most stakes
sorry.
of any of. Oh, sorry.
I just want a quick question before you get. Had you seen or heard of this movie before I kind of pushed this one onto you? Like, I just want to know what your history was. Okay. Okay.
So I grew up with this movie.
Okay, so you
I've loved this movie since I was a little kid.
Oh, nice.
I'm a huge fan of animated Batman movies. I could go on a tangent about them if I could, but that's not the point of this. But this movie, growing up with it, I loved it. It was something that I was excited to watch. It was something that me, my brother, my father, didn't matter how old we were all okay with just throwing on Mask of the Phantasm and just sitting down and watching that movie. When I rewatched it, I had actually forgotten the ending of the movie because it had been so long. I was able to figure it out because I've watched so many animated Batmans that you're often able to pick it out by the end of the movie, which I think is a redeeming characteristic of the movies.
And this is the only one where I'm a little spoiler conscious, just because I don't think everyone's seen this movie. The other ones is like, well. And there's some good twists too.
It's definitely a good twist. I feel like a lot of people don't know about it, honestly, unless you're a hardcore comic fan that grew up around that time.
That's why I was asking out of you, Ben. Like, I wasn't sure. And then Kat, I assumed you had heard of it or seen it. I had seen it when I had mentioned to Kat before we started streaming. I'd seen this movie, but had to rewatch it, and it basically was like watching it fresh, which was a great treat, actually. And so I had a similar experience with the twists and stuff, where I kind of saw them coming, but it's not from. It might have been from memory, but only like the faintest of memories and stuff. Phantasm character twist, I'd say, is less surprising than the other villain twist, which I thought was really well done. And that's the one I kind of want to dance around a little bit, because I think that's a real surprise, and it's a pretty cool one that isn't self-evident. That I kind of thought was pretty good. I would have ranked this even higher if it weren't for, I felt like this movie owes a lot to Batman '89. The whole Batman animated movie and series does. They used music that wasn't used in that movie for the animated series. They got a lot of their designs. That intro to this movie is so good, with the like pseudo 3D animation and all the gothic buildings, and it's playing that '89 style music. But I feel, and if that '89 movie didn't exist, this would absolutely probably like almost definitely be number one for me. But I think it's just like, well, it's not completely independent creatively, and I don't fault it for that. But there is that aspect to it.
I do think this movie's interesting because a lot of the Batman movies don't really play well with the female characters of Batman. So this feels like a fully fleshed female character, obviously.
This is the only one with like a proper female. I mean, there's another example, but it's at our bottom with like a female villain, right? And she's great. That's what I say. Like the Phantasm, like it's less of a surprise, but she's a good villain to follow, and a cool design. Like it just looks really awesome.
And that twist, it definitely ends up happening a lot in Batman after a while, but this is like the first time you see it, and it's kind of cool.
I think it's the best it's been done. And the other cool thing about it too is like we get Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill. I don't know if recognize any of his other names, but like it's that classic cast from the animated series, and that helps a lot. I think. It's awesome to have a movie with Kevin Conroy and Hamill doing those roles, and it was a proper theatrical movie. They got this release for no other reason than Warner Brothers like saw it and just liked it so much they were like, yeah, sure, release it to the world because it's so good. And looking back at the animated series in general, it's like, well, that's totally deserved. Like
Now I wish I put it higher. Now that we're talking about it, it's just been a while since I've seen it. I'm like, oh man, I kind of wish I put this movie
number
higher.
2 overall.
That's something I found when we did our first list with the MCU movies. It was
That's
like,
true.
oh wait, yeah, no, Arden's making a ton of points. I didn't look at it this way. This movie is so much
Sometimes
better
we
than
talk things up too, and it does boost it. But number 2 overall is pretty good for an animated movie. That's also pretty short, which might kind of count in its favor, because when I rewatched it, it's like, oh, that was nice. That wasn't too long or anything like that.
I went out of my way to buy this movie to watch it.
I bought a copy on YouTube too. I was like, sure, why not? The easiest way to get it. Is it on that DC Universe thing? Do you have to know?
I could check. Yeah.
Let's
see. I think it is.
For our American audience. I was joking around with that with Kat because she does work with them and stuff. It's like, yeah, I've heard good things. But
actually not, I don't think. That's so weird.
I got it, like, you can get it for a good price on YouTube, and I was like, oh, totally. Can rewatch that whenever I want now, and it's not a streaming thing, so I just have that copy now, which I was really happy with. It just looks great. It's, I think, the best I've seen of that era of animation too. They really did a good job. I could be wrong, but from what I can remember,
it holds up extremely, extremely well.
It's interesting because with the Batman stuff, like the first Batman seasons with Batman the Animated Series, like it obviously holds up. It's still good animation. But if you look at the second season, like the new Batman Adventures, it's better, I think.
I knew exactly what you're talking about. You're saying that because it's a little choppier. Even the writing, I think, is a little.
Yeah.
They didn't quite get it until around, like, as they developed, they definitely developed. And this kind of, and like Batman Beyond and that Batman Beyond movie, I forget what the exact title is called, which I wish we could have somehow included in here. But Revenge of the Joker, that's it. That's a good that kind of represents their peak, I feel, where they were really nailing it. And then they went into Justice League and stuff and did a good job with that. But this Mask of Phantasm, I think, is really like the peak of their 90s animation line. And we were talking about, we could do a whole other set of videos about their 2000s and 2010 movies, but that's a very different conversation for another day, because, oh my god, there's so many. Some of them are great, though. Okay, so that brings us to the number 1, which I think is well deserved. It was my number 2. Ben, what was this movie ranked?
It was my number 2 as well.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, okay. So there you go.
It definitely is our highest. We did that last time. My number 1 choice was, I think, Ben's number 2, so we agreed to put it at number 1 kind of thing. And again, my
number 1 was your number 5, so we flipped it.
Yeah. This one is by far our most consistent top. And that would be... Oh, sorry. Kat, what was your number 1?
The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
The Dark Knight. I mean, it's a great movie, man. The Joker is amazing. It's so rewatchable. And honestly, just the way you could critique it from, like, a critical lens. Like, you always find something new with that movie.
I've seen this movie more than, like, any other movie. Like, in some ways, it's like, oh, maybe I do have a better argument for this number 1 over Rises. I think Rises is a bit more of a personal favorite to mine, but this is, out of all these movies we've talked about so far, this is by far my number 1 in terms of the amount of times I've seen it. I think it's the most rewatchable because you're saying you notice new things every time. The other thing too is, like, we also consistently ranked it the highest, but like it's the only movie I saw, I think, like, for midnight release, because it was such a big deal and we were so excited. People are comparing it to, like, a Shakespearean tale, but, like, also it changed the way we thought about the Joker. Like, you're talking about history having an influence on these lists and stuff. I think.
Oh yeah, this changed Batman in so many ways. Like, people actually
this is
like the franchise more.
Yeah, I think it, like, even more than maybe 89. 89, like, in terms of raw historical relevance, it might have that edge, but that's what a couple of decades will do for a franchise. But yeah, Dark Knight, in terms of, like, influencing that, and then all the stuff that went into Heath Ledger's performance, as tragic as that ending was, it's insane going back to those scenes and looking at it and being like, wow, like, it's amazing how powerful that still is in light of us having the Joker movie. And I
mean, there's so many quotes from that movie too, and not, like, just so many good monologues. And
we've had a lot of different Joker origin stories between, like, Joker 89 and one other on here, but, like, this one is the one I like the most. Like the way they play around with it and stuff is so good, and that had been done before, but I thought like it's so clever. They don't just spell that out. They just let you notice it when he starts telling people, "Oh, you want to know how I got these scars?" And it's just a different story every time. Like we all know that bit now, but I remember how like clever I thought that was when we were watching it. Like I was watching it the first time. And everyone does a great job. Even Aaron Eckhart constantly gets overlooked, the poor guy, because there's all these big things going on. But he was
But
great
it's
as
so
Two-Face.
good.
Yeah,
Oh,
like
I
he was.
love that version of Two-Face is my favorite version of Two-Face.
Oh
Just
yeah,
makes so much
100%.
sense, and also there's just this really interesting character tale from him too. You know how he becomes the villain. Oh, it's a great movie.
yeah,
Yeah. To me, this is just the definitive Batman movie. The
yeah.
I think you kind of look at 89 in a lot of the same ways that I look at The Dark Knight. Not necessarily in the sense of what it meant to the movies that comes after it, but
Right.
in the sense of what it meant for the people when it came out. Um, all of my friends, all the people that I know that are around my age, this is kind of the movie. This is what got people to everyone loved Batman after this.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, I remember like all these coming out and just how quotable it was, and it was just one of those movies that I don't see myself looking at another live action Batman the same way I look at The Dark Knight. And it may not have been my number one, but it was my number one live action, and I to me there was a very distinct reason. It was just a movie that I will watch again, that I after talking about it, like I always think back about all the stories that go on behind the scenes, and it
Yeah.
just everything that had to happen for this movie to come together, and it just makes it so iconic.
Um, the we haven't talked about it really with any movie, but the score in this movie is a big part of that too.
Oh yeah, of
It's really
Yeah.
course.
part of all the Nolan movies, but it's definitely used best here, and it's most memorable here. And you're talking about quotable lines, like yeah, that movie is insanely quotable, and it comes up so often in life, and in just like weird little ways. You also reminded me of how influential it was like culturally in terms of like a zeitgeist in filmmaking, possibly to a detriment when we look at movies like Skyfall. I'm sure there's more. Like it introduced a lot of tropes of like a villain intentionally getting caught and all these other like weird little decisions, but that ain't the Dark Knight's fault.
Yeah.
It just sort
They
of
did it well. They did it well.
they did it well, and they still kind of did it best. And I really like this movie. I'm not upset with these results. Looking
Oh,
them over,
neither.
it actually was really consistent with what I had. I noticed that we kind of closed off like the bottom half of my list before we even really started tapping into the top,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty much in agreement with this, even if it's not gonna be exact with anyone's. That's kind of the point. Is it's a little bit of a group effort to see what we get out of this. And,
I'm very glad that you found this ranking method. This
Yeah,
is
no, this is
oh,
like a
oh
very
right,
good ranking method.
I
yeah. Please shout them out if you didn't at the beginning
I
of the
think I
of the
forgot.
thing.
I
I
might
got
have
you. Don't
mentioned
worry.
it to you, Kat, before we started recording. But yes, I didn't invent any of this. I got the idea from Matt Gorley of the James Bonding podcast. They do a lot of these lists for the James Bond movies, which actually fits really well because it's about 25, so it leads to a similar kind of length and setup for something like this where they can do the ranking. It's a really fun way of doing it, but I don't want to take credit because I didn't come up with it, and it's cleverer than I am by quite a bit. And I don't even know if Gorley came up with it. He might have gotten that from someone else too, like on a message board or something. So let's not give.
A
Yeah.
train of
But if anyone out there watching, or if you guys like James Bond, it's a great podcast, and they've been going on for a while. And if you don't know anything about James Bond, it's a fun way to learn about it. Like I had been so behind on those movies and stuff. Like I used to watch them as a kid, but I hadn't seen any of the Daniel Craig ones or anything. That I went through the podcast watching the James Bond movies as I did, and enjoyed it quite a bit. But I don't think I've ever talked about James Bond on this YouTube channel before, so it might not be up everyone's wheelhouse. Although there are James Bond comics, so maybe one day.
There are.
I don't know anything about them. Yeah, so thank you both for joining me very much. Okay, yeah, it'll be a good 2-hour discussion. Hopefully that was not too much of your time, especially on your part, Bad. It seems like you did a lot of legwork. You could have always just said no, man.
Hey, Arden, you tell me we've got movies to watch, I will watch these movies.
Oh, that's fair enough. I just, Jared, who's been on here before, had watched like 2 of the movies on this list and did not want to do it. I was like, yeah, I don't blame you, man. That sounds like a lot. I was amazed.
Yeah, no, I watched.
I don't know which of those movies he'd see. I gotta poke him about that and learn a little bit more about that, because that's interesting.
That's very little.
It's an achievement in and of itself. And I know people who don't watch a lot of comic book movies and stuff, but the Batman ones in particular, it's like, how did you get around it? Like, without it just...
Yeah, how did you miss it?
Like,
yeah.
naturally
on TV, like, they're always
osmosing. Didn't your friends make you watch something at some point?
No, so I had seen most of these movies.
Oh, I understand that.
To be fair, a lot of these movies came out before I was a twinkle in my dad's eye.
I kind of sent it to you, like, not sure about how many and stuff, but I don't blame you for revisiting them. I had to check a lot of stuff too. Some of them I remembered really well, though. That's an example of, like, Dark Knight. I was like, no. I mean, I've seen that movie
you don't
a
have
lot.
to rewatch that. Yeah.
That's the kind of movie.
I did just because I wanted to.
Oh, sure. I would, like, if I don't, I see it pretty regularly through my work, so I was in no rush to see it again. That's actually true for a few movies on here, but it was good times.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, there's, I don't want to violate their privacy on that, but that was good times. All right, so I think we'll call it there, at least for the stream. Thank you all for joining me and watching us. I haven't been watching that much in terms of concurrent viewers or whatever. We seem to get a good crowd going, so thank you very much for that. Kat and Ben, thank you for joining me very much. I did post, Kat, your links on our description, so check that for her Twitter feed and YouTube page. If there's other links, just let me know and I'll throw them on there too. And you can check out, like, that your Twitter page has, like, all the stuff for, like, father, like, daughter, and all the ways they can find you that way. So I figured that was the easiest way to do it. Is there anything you wanted to plug before we go, Kat? Ben, you're welcome to as well, but I think you're good.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Just again, check out the Like Father Like Daughter Kickstarter if you guys can. We're up to issue 6, and we're halfway to our goal, so we're really excited about that.
Possibly more about that later on Comic Island, if history's any indication, then sure, we'll talk about that right about after we close this out. So thanks again, everyone, and have a good evening. All right.